Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Past performance can make the difference in a best value procurement, but agencies still have to evaluate it the way they said they would. That's the lesson from a recent GAO protest involving a Veterans Affairs acquisition support contract. Joining Federal Drive host Terry Gerton earlier with the details, Zach Prince, partner at Haynes Boone.
We've got a protest case with the VA today to talk about. Why don't you start by just kind of telling us the story? Who are the main characters here and what's at stake?
Sure. So this is a procurement from the VA's Veteran Health Services for acquisition support services. The awardee is a company called Dynamic Management Associates, or DMA, and the protester is Veterans Management Services, Inc., or VMSI. It's easier to just call them by their acronyms. This was a SDVOSB set aside solicited back in November of last year for holders of the Federal Supply Schedule contracts. GAO noted, this was structured as a best value, considering past performance and price, both of which were supposed to be equal in importance. The RFQ here required vendors to submit 3 past performance references and advised that the VA would review available past performance data in CPARS, this Contractor Performance Assessment Reporting System. VA got 43 quotes and awarded to DMA back in December, and VMSI almost immediately protested the GAO. That was quickly resolved when the VA told GAO it was going to take corrective action, issue a new award decision, which rendered the GAO decision moot. GAO dismissed it, and then, as often happens, the agency re-awarded to the same prior awardee, just with a slightly more robust record, and VMSI protested again.
One of the things I thought was interesting here is that it's a best value procurement, but performance and price are equal in importance instead of price being the dominant factor. How did that play into this protest?
Yeah, so it was important because if past performance were rated higher for the protester, it might have been able to circumvent the price advantage that the awardee had. So the awardee had, I think it was about $500,000 in a price advantage. So there was a gap, but because they were both supposed to be equal, that is past performance and price, if past performance were weighted heavier, that is the past performance of the protester were properly evaluated in its view, it might have been able to receive the award notwithstanding its higher price.
And the VA appeared to have given some conflicting guidance or maybe not followed its own direction as it evaluated past performance. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So I thought the solicitation was pretty clear. It said that all offerers are going to have to submit these 3 references. Great. It said the agency would consider information in CPARS. Great, the agency did. Then it said the agency may, didn't say shall, it said may, consider recent past performance, that is from 3 years ago or sooner, of more importance than older past performance. It did not say it was going to ignore any past performance older than 3 years. But VMSI successfully argued that's what the agency did. They took any past performance in CPARS that was older than 3 years. They noted it was not recent, and then they stopped evaluating. So they didn't consider its relevance. They didn't consider the quality of the performance. They just stopped. So totally discounted any older past performance.
And that became material to VMSI, right? Because they had positive past performance that could have been considered.
Yeah, they pointed out that they had 4 past performance evaluations in CPARS of excellent that were older than 3 years. That may have been the determinative factor in the evaluation that could have gotten them the award.
Zach Prince is a partner at Haynes Boone. So Zach, what's the acquisition issue here? Is it for contractors to note and follow the rules exactly? Is it for the contracting officer to make sure they follow their own direction? Where's the conflict?
Yeah, so agencies need to actually follow the evaluation criteria. Write what you mean and then do it. There really wasn't an ambiguity here. Often in these cases, there's some ambiguity. The solicitation could have been framed clearer. This one was pretty clear. I think it was plain English. It means that the agency would consider past performance that's older than 3 years. They just might not weigh it the same way. Well, great, but they didn't do that at all. They just discounted it entirely. There's also two interesting asides that GAO noted in footnotes. One was just a note to practitioners. If you're making a protest argument and the agency responds to that argument, you have to then rebut the agency's position, or it's just going to be viewed as abandoned. Protesters abandon initial arguments all the time. That's fine. But if you want it to survive and you want GAO to consider it, you have to give them something to work with. So here there was a past performance issue that the protester had initially raised. The agency explained in its report why that wasn't an issue, and the protester just regurgitated what it said in its initial protest. The GAO pointed out that is bad practice. You're not going to win on that. We consider that abandoned. We don't have to deal with it.
What was the second?
The second has to do with the RFO, so the Revolutionary FAR Overhaul. Now, as this iterative process has gone on, many agencies, including the VA and GSA, have adopted through class deviations the revised FAR provisions. But often you will still see solicitations that use the current FAR, which is what happened here. It wasn't actually relevant to the decision, but GAO wanted to point it out to give guidance to agencies that you need to use the right clauses. And this could, in future cases, cause a real conflict that results in a different result. For protesters, that GAO doesn't note this point, but if you note as an offeror a discrepancy between clauses that are included and clauses the agency should have included, the time to challenge that is in advance of award. As don't hope for the best and try to have your cake and eat it too, because then you waive the argument.
GAO's footnotes are always important, so I really appreciate that you pulled those up. There was one other point of protest here, and that the protester argued that DMA should be disqualified because it used the wrong start date after an amendment. Was that just a technicality, not enough to overturn this award?
Yeah, in GAO's view, it was a technicality. I think they dealt with this second because they knew they were already going to sustain the protest and they didn't have to delve too deeply into it. But they found, GAO explained this was essentially an argument that the solicitation requirements had been relaxed. And that kind of argument only works if you can show as the protester that had it been relaxed for you, you may have materially changed your proposal to your advantage, which VMSI didn't even try to argue here in GAO's telling of it.
So VMSI got kind of a partial win, but partially not a win? How do you read the outcome of GAO's decision?
Well, their win on one argument means they win, but like any protest, that result might be a Pyrrhic victory, right? Because GAO tells the agency, go back and either redo the evaluation correctly, or you can issue a solicitation amendment and say we're not going to consider any past performance that's older than 3 years. Now, either way is fine. Neither guarantees protester is going to get the award.
So what happens with this next? VA is going to reissue, and then we should watch to see what happens. VMSI will have the chance to challenge again.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if the VA awards back to the same party, DMA, and they certainly might, my guess is VMSI is going to challenge this again. And, they could well win again. And we'll be back here talking about it in a couple of months. So
what should contractors watch out for in these kind of cases where there are iterative changes as a result of incremental protests?
Yeah, they just have to be very careful to follow what's going on and what the solicitation requires. This is always the consideration when you're protesting, is it going to be worth the challenge and the cost? Because you might not get anything as an outcome, and you might annoy your customer, which of course is not supposed to be a consideration in a objective blind procurement system, but we're all humans.
Zach Prince is a partner at Haynes Boone, speaking there with Federal News Network's Terry Gerton. We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Subscribe to the Federal Drive wherever you get your podcasts.